Tiffany Taylor from Live Curly Live Free, aka the Curl Whisperer. And today we are going to talk about the four main hair characteristics, which are texture, porosity, elasticity, and density. And for those of you who aren't aware, I have a group on Facebook that's called Curly Girls in Florida because that's where I live, where my salon is, and we started the group because things are just so different down here and the weather is just hellacious. So we talk about things like chlorine and humidity and stuff like that. And I got to the point where I got so tired of new people dragging into the group, pulling in all this bad, inaccurate hair science, like that stupid float test for porosity. I mean, so I finally, some of the girls said to me, well, Tiff, can you tell us really what's true and what we should be looking for? So I said I would do this YouTube for them. So I have my notes because I have a lot to talk about. So I want you to sit back, get a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, depending on what time of the day you're watching this. I got my water. Excuse me, because I'm going to be talking a lot. And we're going to go over those four hair characteristics, what they really mean and what you really should look for. My group and everything I talk about is based on pure hair science. There is a textbook by it's called Milady, and most states in the United States that I know of, they base their state board examinations when you're applying for a license to become a new hairdresser. They base it on the teachings in Milady. So when I teach and do videos and talk to the girls in group, there is nothing that I ever tell them that is not in Milady that cannot be verified. And I tell them, well, the float test for porosity, not Milady. So what's that telling you right off the bat there? How many times have you bought a product and you've tried it once, maybe twice, and it's horrible, and so you throw it into the bathroom sink, and that's another $15 down the drain? The global hair care marketing is a $100 billion industry. And I like to say most of it is hiding under the bathroom sink because product manufacturers and social media influencers, stuff like that, they're really not all that concerned about whether or not something is good and healthy for you. They want the dollars in your pocket, and they're going to tell you anything they need to, and they're going to wrap it in a bow and make it look all nice and pretty, and they're going to sell it to you. And when it doesn't work for you and you throw it under the bathroom sink, they're not going to give you your money back. Some of the vendors that sell stuff like Ulta and stuff like that have money back guarantees, and that's great. That's good for us, but they aren't the product manufacturers. So the reason I teach on a hair science basis is that way I figure you have the good, true information, and then you can make decisions for yourself based on what you know. And real quick here, shameless little plug, I have a document. It is an actual hair analysis document. It's about 25 pages. It's $25. If you go to my website, which is livecurlylivefree.salon, it's right on the first page under the important announcements. And you can purchase that, and it will tell you everything way more in depth than we're going to talk about, plus other things, plus how to do the basic curly girl routine and stuff like that. So if you're interested for more information, you can go ahead to my website on the front page and look at that. Okay, So let's start. Okay, the first manufacturer or the hair characteristic we're going to talk about is texture. And texture is determined by the diameter of one single hair strand. And there are three characteristics under texture. Your hair is either fine, medium, or coarse. Now you can kind of straddle those lines. You can have different textures on your head. I know some girls that might have a medium texture all over, but they're really fine at the nape. And that's okay. Just try to kind of figure out what your majority texture is. Like I said, fine hair has the smallest diameter, medium is in the middle, coarse is the largest. 98% of your hair is made of a non-living protein structure called keratin. Not to be confused with that horrible keratin smoothing treatment and stuff they, again, marketing tried to sell to you. But real natural keratin protein. And how much keratin protein your hair manufactures for yourself, it determines what your texture actually is. If you have fine hair, that means if you look at one hair strand, it's what I call disappearing into the sunlight hair. You can barely see it. It's limp, it's kind of fly away, it doesn't want to hold a style. Most of the fine hair girls I know and my clients, they are not as curly the next day after they do their hair as they are the day they do their hair, because their hair just kind of wilts. It's very delicate hair. It's very easy to overprocess. It's very easy to damage. That is why it is imperative that when you pick product for yourself, in your penetrating products, especially your leave-in conditioners, your regular rinse-out conditioners, your deep treatments, you need to pick a product that is protein based. And it goes without saying, the whole curly girl philosophy, no sulfates, no silicones, that is what I teach. So, and we're going to talk about that whole CG movement in a minute and stuff. So anyway, fine hair, you need to add additional protein to your hair, because when you feel dry, it's actually pretty easy to get moisture in your hair. What you usually are feeling is protein deprivation. So make sure that those penetrating products have some level of protein in them. Conversely, medium texture hair, which is mid-range, it's kind of like not too fine, not too coarse, kind of right in the middle. It's the easiest hair to take care of. You don't really have to do much with it. But medium hair, I'm a medium texture girl. My hair doesn't love protein a whole lot, because my hair manufactures enough protein on its own. So if I start adding protein to my hair and I start strengthening that structure, my hair's not going to be happy. Coarse hair girls, they are so sensitive to additional protein added to their hair. It's all about moisture for them. Oils and creams and butters and stuff like that. You can't get too much moisture in their hair. But for the most part, they don't love protein a whole lot. They get very brittle. Their hair likes to break. Their hair actually manufactures an overabundance of protein. So if you have fine hair, put additional protein in your hair. If you have medium or coarse texture, kind of avoid that in your penetrating products, and your hair will be much happier. Knowing your hair's texture is the single most important thing that you can know for your hair in order to pick a product for yourself. I don't care if these product manufacturers put for fine hair, for thick hair, for wavy hair, blah blah blah. But I have yet to see a product manufacturer bottle that says for fine hair, for coarse hair, something like that. It's always about how much curl they have. It's all about the wave pattern. And that's really not how you need to pick your product for yourself. They will be much more effective. Now, protein is also a reconstructor. So if you've bleached your hair and that actually damages the protein structure, your hair might occasionally appreciate a little bit of protein put in, because protein will actually rebuild that hair structure, but it's not going to be your go-to everyday kind of thing. All right, let's move on. All right, I was going to say, when you look for products that are quote-unquote CG, and the whole CG thing started in 2003, a woman by the name of Lorraine Massey wrote a book called Curly Girl. And that's kind of like the linchpin of where all this started. And it cracks me up because there are sites out there like isitcg.com, curlscan.com, curlsbot.com. I even forget what all else is out there. And if you cut and paste a product ingredients list into their website, it will come back and tell you if that product is quote unquote CG or Curly Girl or not. And I kind of shake my head because I'm like, if you read Lorraine's original book, and if you look on Wikipedia and look at the definition for what CG really means, when Lorraine wrote the book, she said, no shampoo, no silicones, no heat. And that is it. So when I go to one of these sites and I see this based on the Curly Girl book by Lorraine Massey, I'm like, no, it's not. Now, that's not to say we haven't learned some things in the last, 17 years since Lorraine wrote the book. But you don't have to follow every little thing that these sites say. Where did they come up with that information? Lorraine said no sulfates, no silicones. But she never said, like, waxes. It's not CG because it has a wax in it, or anything like that. She never, ever said that. So what you need to understand is, in order to be a true CG follower, you need to get the sulfates and the silicones out of your products, and that's it. Everything else, now if you want to follow it, there is nothing wrong with that. That's your choice, and that is your decision. But you don't have to have a fit or go into a group. I had a couple people in my group that every once in a while would pop up, well, that product's not CG. And I would be like, you can't say that. It doesn't have sulfates and silicones in it. She hasn't decided if that is CG or not for her. Excuse me. So just bear that in mind. Keep the sulfates and silicones out. Make your best decision on the rest of it, and you'll be good to go. All right? So moving on to the next, porosity, and this is where I lose my mind in my group, because girls will come and they'll join the group and they have to stand up and declare, "This is my porosity," and I'm like, no, it's not. You got it from that stupid flow test, which is inaccurate and very unscientific, and you're saying, well, I have medium porosity. There is no such thing as medium porosity. That means nothing. Your hair's porosity can be high, which is overly porous, or average, which is normal, or low. That is what Milady says. So, they come in here and they stand up and they have to, blare that out to everybody. And they also, well, what products should I use for my medium porosity hair? All right. Your porosity has absolutely nothing to do with what products you use. Again, that is a manufacturer thing. A very well-known curly product manufacturer about 5 years ago, maybe 6, they came out with their low porosity and high porosity line. And when they first did, I was like, what are you talking about? That's not right. It's not that porosity is not important. It's critically important to us. But because your hair's porosity is its ability to absorb and retain moisture. And there's not a product in the world that's going to change that for you. So when they came out with that, and I lost my mind, because the girls in the group will tell you, Tiffany likes to lose her mind a lot. I immediately, it got so bad that I actually, when people join the Florida group, I will tell them, do not mention your porosity in this group, or we will kick you out. Because I don't need anybody coming in and repeating all that bad junk, what we call junk hair science, and confusing my members even more. So, your degree of porosity is directly related to the condition of your cuticle, which is the outside layer of your hair. Your hair has 2 to 3 layers. There is the medulla, which is in the very innermost layer. And not everybody has a medulla. That's more commonly found in coarse hair. People with medium to fine texture, we typically only have 2 layers. So there's the medulla, there's the middle layer, which is the cortex, and then there's the outside layer, which is the cuticle. And the cuticle layer looks like overlapping roof tiles. They're kind of staggered. And when your cuticle is undamaged and laying down flat, that's average porosity. It's tight enough that it's going to retain moisture, but unlike low porosity, which you will find in certain types of hair, it's not so tight that it won't let anything into your hair. So you have to kind of look for your porosity in that way to figure it out. High overly porous hair, that means there's usually damage to the cuticle. Excuse me again, I'm really thirsty today. There has been bleach damage, other kinds of damage. The cuticle isn't laying flat like roof tiles. It's been damaged by bleach, or in Florida, we talk about this a lot, excess sun, chlorine damage, things like that. And so high porosity hair absorbs moisture really easily, but it blows it back out really easily too. So knowing that, there's no way to permanently fix damaged porosity. Only time will grow out that hair and let it mend. But there are still things you can do that are not product related that can keep your hair shaft more intact from wash to wash. You might have different different porosity types on top of your head. For example, if your hair is highlighted and it's been done with bleach highlights, the bleach highlights may actually be overly porous because there's damage there, but the unbleached sections have an average or normal porosity because they haven't been damaged. So that's something you can look out for as well. The texture of your hair is not an automatic indication of its porosity. I can't say, well, your hair is coarse, so your hair is overly porous. That's not necessarily true. It's the condition of your hair that makes it important. Let me see, do I have everything there? I had the float test, we talked about that. The types of products that you use. So that's it for porosity. It's important because your hair needs the capability to absorb moisture. And if you don't have that, if you have some damage there, and you're losing moisture, you can fix it in ways that are not related to the products you use. Because again, the products that you use have absolutely nothing to do with your porosity. And I know what else I was going to say. The float test. Okay. When people come in and they tell me their porosity, 9 out of 10 times they've figured out because they've done this float test. And what the float test is you take several strands of hair and you put them in a glass of water. And if they sink, they're overly porous, I think. And if they float, then they're normal porosity. And the first time I ever saw that, I said, you've got to be kidding me. All right, so your hair, okay, there is an oil secretion that comes out of your scalp. It's called sebum. We all have it. Curly hair girls, we have it too. We can't distribute it quite as well as girls with straight hair because we don't use brushes. We don't, brush and stuff like that. But even when we shampoo and do condition and stuff like that, there's still sebum coming out of the scalp, and we still distribute that down our hair shaft. So when you put a few hairs in a glass of water, it's gonna float because there's oil on it. There's sebum on it. Even if it's a little tiny, teeny bit, it's still there. So that float test is absolutely worthless. Like I said, the Milady book, there's no mention of to test porosity in this manner. They give absolutely no credence to the float test at all. So let's go ahead and move on. It's funny because when girls come in the group now and they say, oh, my porosity is this, stuff like that, I boom, get all these messages from messengers. They're like, I saw her say that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Tiffany is losing her mind. So it's actually become a little bit of a joke to some of us. But okay, so we've gone over texture, we've gone over porosity, elasticity. All right, elasticity is your hair's capability of stretching and returning back without snapping or breaking. And you don't have to pull very hard. You want to take one hair, maybe about that distance apart, pull it and let it go back and just see if it stretches without snapping and breaking. That's an indication of how strong the side bonds, the protein chains in your hair that hold your hair strand in place are. All right, and more than any other property, elasticity is what determines if your hair holds its curl, holds a wet set. If you have someone that has straight hair and wants to put their hair in rollers when it's wet, and then when it's dry, let's see how well that curls hold. Or even if someone gets a perm, how well does that perm hold? I have a lot of new clients and a lot of girls come in the group and they'll say, I used to straighten my hair. I used to flat iron, as 95 million of us used to do. And they've just started the naturally curly thing. And they're like, and my hair, the curl is kind of okay, but I've got this bottom section that it just does not straight, it doesn't curl no matter what I do. Or if it curls, it falls out after an hour. And that's damaged elasticity. Your hair has lost its ability to hold its curl. And again, just like with porosity, only time is going to mend that. So you have to kind of grit your teeth and be patient. You might want to sacrifice a few inches every time you get your hair cut until that gets chopped off. A lot of girls are into what we call the big chop. They will just cut all of their hair off, like down to Halle Berry short. And when I started doing this, and I actually started doing the CG thing 3 months after Lorraine's book came out in 2003, I was a chicken. I did the, like, every once in a while cut a few inches. I was not cutting all my hair off. I couldn't do that. I've had girls that have become clients that I've worked with them on their transition for a couple of years because they did not want to sacrifice their length. And that's okay. That's a personal determination. You decide what you can do. Alright? Alright, density. Your hair's density can be classified as low, medium, or high. And what density actually is the number of hairs per square inch on your hair. So that kind of determines, do you have super thick hair? Do you have super thin hair? Typically color actually determines a lot of that. Redheads have the lowest density. They have the least number of hairs per square inch on their hair. And I think blondes have the most, and us brunettes were kind of like in the middle. And density is not really something that you need to worry about when you're picking product for yourself. That doesn't affect your wave pattern and stuff like that. It's just how thin or thick, like how much hair you have is. My hair is a lot thinner in density than it used to be because I had a baby and then I had a stroke, and so I lost a lot of it. Density is more important when it comes to what kind of a haircut are you going to get, because if you have really fine hair and it's really thin, you want to cut it differently than you do that someone has really fine hair and really thick hair, because it's going to lay differently. With fine hair or with low density hair, I remember I was in beauty school and a vendor came in to demonstrate their keratin straightening process, and they picked a girl who had really fine hair and not a lot of it. And I had already been doing CG for 5 years at that point, 6 years, and I just remember thinking, her hair, she's going to look like she has 3 hairs on her head. And she did. They went in this great straightening process, and she looked like she had absolutely nothing. So getting back to the whole haircut thing, you just need to think about the type of hair that you have relative to the haircut. With curly hair too, coarse, thick hair has a tendency to move in east-west direction instead of north or south. So you have to be really careful if you cut it really short, because if you don't do it the right way, you look like a pool cue ball. So there are determinations, and your hairdresser can help you figure all that out as well. So anyway, so those are the 4 hair characteristics: texture, porosity, elasticity, and density. And that should give you enough information to kind of really start understanding your hair, what it is, what it does. You can also think about wave pattern. It's not one of the hair characteristics, but like how curly you are kind of also depends on how you want to cut it. It goes hand in hand with density. So that's something you can bear in mind as well. But as far as all that, again, on my website on livecurly.salon, on the top tab there's a recommendations tab, and if you click on that, there is a list of products for fine hair, products for medium hair, products for coarse hair. And on every page there is a list. There's one for shampoos and co-washes, one for conditioners, one for leave-ins, one for deep treatments, and stuff like that. And all those products under that category are good for your texture of hair. It may not be your favorite, but you know it'll work, and you're not going to be wasting that $15 going down. So anyhow, this is Tiffany, the Curl Whisperer. That's our lesson for today on the 4 hair characteristics. I have more planned, so stay tuned. If you are a Florida curly girl, and if you are interested, I have a group called Curly Girls in Florida. You are free to join. Just, I'm sorry for those of you that are not Florida girls. This is not the group for you, but I plan on doing more YouTube, so subscribe to my channel, and we'll figure all this hair science stuff out, so you guys stop wasting product and start using it in your hair instead of storing it under the bathroom sink. Okay, take care, you guys. Bye.